Could a Viking sailor become a great lord in a land far from home? In today's story, restless Northmen leave to seek new lives across the sea, and one of them wins a whole country. Let's look at the vocabulary and key places for our story. Take a moment to talk or think through the vocabulary and find today's story on the map. You might even compare its location to a modern atlas. If you have the lesson guide, now is a good time to pause, fill in the words you already know on the vocabulary page, and grab your blank map.
Chapter 11. King Harald Goes West-Over-Seas. Now many men hated King Harald. Many a man said, "Why should he put himself up for king of all of us? He is no better than I am. Am I not a king's son as well as he? And are not many of us king's sons? I will not kneel before him and promise to be his man. I will not pay him taxes. I will not have his earl sitting over me. The good old days have gone. This Norway has become a prison. I will go away and find some other place." So hundreds of men sailed away. Some went to France and got land and lived there. Big Rolf-go-afoot and all his men sailed up the great French river and won a battle against the French king himself. There was no way to stop the flashing of his battle axes but to give him what he wanted. So the king made Rolf a duke, gave him broad lands, and gave him the king's own daughter for wife. Rolf called his country Normandy for Old Norway. He ruled it well and was a great lord, and his sons after him were kings of England. Other Norsemen went to Ireland and England and Scotland. They drew up their boats on the riverbanks. The people ran away before them and gathered into great armies that marched back to meet the Vikings in battle. Sometimes the Norsemen lost, but oftener they won, so that they got land and lived in those countries. Their houses sat in these strange lands like warrior camps, and the Norsemen went among their new neighbors with hanging swords and spears in hand, ever ready for fight. There are many islands north of Scotland. They are called the Orkneys and the Shetlands. They have many good harbors for ships. They are little and rocky and bare of trees. Wild seabirds scream around them. On some of them a man can stand in the middle and see the ocean all about him. Now the Vikings sailed to these islands and were pleased. "It is like being always in a boat," they said. "This shall be our home." So it went until all the lands round about were covered with Vikings. Norse-carved and painted houses brightened the hillsides. Viking ships sailed all the seas and made harbor in every river. Norsemen's thralls plowed the soil and planted crops and herded cattle, and gold flowed into their masters' treasure chests. Norse warriors walked up and down the land, and no man dared to say them nay. These men did not forget Norway. In the summers they sailed back there and harried the coast. They took gold and grain and beautiful cloth back to their homes. In Norway they left burning houses and weeping women. Every summer King Harald had out his ships and men and hunted these Vikings. There are many little islands about Norway. They have crags and caves and deep woods. Here the Vikings hid when they saw King Harald's ships coming. But Harald ran his boat into every creek and fjord, and hunted in every cave and through all the woods and among the crags. He caught many men, but most of them got away and went home laughing at Harald. Then they came back the next summer and did the same deeds over again. At last King Harald said, "There is but one thing to do. I must sail to these western islands and whip these robbers in their own homes." So he went with a great number of ships. He found as brave men as he had brought from Norway. These Vikings had brought their old courage to their new homes. King Harold's fine ships were scarred by Viking stones and scorched by Viking fire. The shields of Harold's warriors had dents from Viking blows. Many of those men carried Viking scars all their lives, and many of King Harold's warriors walked the long, hard road to Valhalla and feasted there with some of these very Vikings that had died in King Harold's battles. But after many hard fights on land and sea, after many men had died and many had fled away to other lands, King Harold won, and he made the men that were yet in the islands take the oath, and he left his earls to rule over them. Then he went back to Norway. "He has done more than he vowed to do," people said. "He has not only whipped the Vikings, but he has got a new kingdom west overseas." Then they talked of that dream that his mother had. "King Harold was that great tree," they said. "The trunk was red with blood of his many battles, but higher up the limbs were fair and green like this good time of peace. The topmost branches were white because Harold will live to be an old man." Just as that tree spread out until all of Norway was in its shade and even more lands, so Harold is king of all this country and of the western islands. The many branches of that tree are the many sons of Harold, who shall be earls and kings in Norway, and their sons after them, for hundreds of years.
So how far could a Viking rise? In the sagas and later histories, a leader called Rolf was given land by the French king and made a duke, and long after his line was tied to the kings of England. We do the planning, the books come alive, your child does the learning. See you next time.